The envelope sat on the coffee table between us, wrapped in cheerful red and gold paper. My wife Emily smiled at me, her eyes bright with something I couldn't quite read. "Open it," she said softly. I tore through the wrapping, expecting maybe concert tickets or a watch. Instead, I pulled out a single piece of paper. A DNA test result. My hand started shaking as I read the name at the top, Lucas Morgan. My son. Except the percentage next to probability of paternity read 0. 0%. I looked up at Emily, and in that moment, I watched my entire world collapse into a lie I never saw coming. But that wasn't even the beginning of what she'd done. Because when I finally flipped to the second page, I saw another name. Another test. Another child. My daughter Sophie. And the results were exactly the same. My name is David Morgan. 42 years old. Husband for 15 years. Father for 12. Or at least, that's what I thought until Christmas morning 2023, when my wife handed me a gift that would reveal she'd been living a double life for over a decade. The room started spinning. Emily sat perfectly still across from me, her face unreadable. "Say something," she whispered. But I couldn't. Because tucked behind those two DNA tests was a third piece of paper. A letter. And the handwriting wasn't Emily's. Let me take you back to where this nightmare actually began. Not on Christmas morning, but 6 months earlier, in June, when I first noticed something had changed in my marriage and didn't trust my own instincts. Emily and I met at a hospital fundraiser in 2007. She was a pediatric nurse with a laugh that could light up a room. I was a project manager for a construction company, awkward at social events, nursing a beer in the corner. She approached me first. Asked if I was always this uncomfortable at parties. I fell in love with her that night. We married a year later in a small ceremony by the lake, surrounded by our closest friends and family. She was 26. I was 27. We promised each other forever, and I meant it with every cell in my body. Lucas came 2 years later. Dark hair like mine, Emily's green eyes. He was perfect. Then Sophie arrived when Lucas turned 3. Blonde like her mother, with my stubborn chin. Our family was complete. We bought a house in the suburbs with a big backyard. I coached Lucas's soccer team. Emily hosted playdates for Sophie's preschool friends. We went to Disney World twice. Had movie nights every Friday. Argued about whose turn it was to take out the trash. Normal. Beautifully, perfectly normal. That's what made the betrayal so devastating. There were no warning signs. No late-night phone calls or mysterious credit card charges. Emily wasn't distant or cold. She was present. Loving. She kissed me goodbye every morning, asked about my day every evening, made love to me with what seemed like genuine passion. How do you prepare yourself for the knife when it comes from the hand you trusted to hold yours? The first crack appeared on June 14th. I remember the date because it was Lucas's 12th birthday. We'd thrown him a party in the backyard, and Emily's phone kept buzzing. She'd glance at it, frown, then slide it back into her pocket. The third time it happened, I asked, "Everything okay?" She smiled that smile I'd seen 1,000 times. "Just work stuff. Nothing important." But I saw her hands shake slightly as she picked up the phone again. That tiny tremor. That was the first red flag I noticed, though I wouldn't understand what it meant for months. I felt something twist in my stomach. A small voice whispered that something was wrong. I pushed it away. This was Emily. My Emily. The woman who cried at every school play and saved every drawing our kids made. I told myself I was being paranoid. But I couldn't quite shake the feeling that something had shifted beneath the surface of our perfect life. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more like it, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. 2 weeks after Lucas's birthday, I came home early from work. I'd finished a project ahead of schedule and wanted to surprise Emily, maybe take her to that Italian restaurant she loved. I walked into the house calling her name. No answer. Her car was in the driveway, so I knew she was home. I found her in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone with tears streaming down her face. What's wrong? I rushed to her side. She jumped, literally jumped, and hid the phone behind her back. Nothing. You scared me, that's all. She wiped her face quickly. I was just watching a sad video. You know how those animal rescue things get me. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Wrong. I knew every sound my wife made, and that laugh was a stranger. Can I see? I asked, reaching for her phone. Her face went pale. It's nothing, really. I already closed it. She stood up, putting distance between us. Why are you home so early anyway? The deflection was obvious. The panic in her eyes was real. I let it go. God help me, I let it go. But that wasn't the worst part. The next incident came 3 weeks later, in early July. Emily announced she was taking a weekend trip with her sister Rachel. Just some sister bonding time, she said. Rachel's been stressed with her divorce. It made sense. Rachel was going through a rough separation, and Emily had always been protective of her younger sister. I told her to go, have fun, that the kids and I would be fine. She kissed me at the door, her overnight bag slung over her shoulder, and I watched her drive away feeling like a supportive husband. On Saturday night, I decided to call and check in. The phone rang 4 times before Emily answered. Hey, babe, she said, slightly breathless. Everything okay? I could hear music in the background. Loud music. Yeah, all good. Just wanted to say goodnight. Sounds like you two are having fun. There was a pause. A beat too long. Oh, yeah. We're at this little wine bar Rachel found. Pretty loud. More silence. Then a man's voice in the background, muffled but distinct. Emily, come on, they're about to close the line went dead. When I called back, it went straight to voicemail. She texted me 5 minutes later, sorry. Phone died. Charging now. Love you. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my own phone. A man's voice. At a wine bar that was closing. With my wife. Who was supposed to be having sister time with Rachel. I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. David. How are the kids? She sounded genuinely happy to hear from me. Too happy. Too normal for someone who was supposed to be out at a loud wine bar. They're great. Hey, is Emily around? Her phone died. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Yeah, she's in the bathroom. I'll have her call you back. But Rachel's voice had changed. It was careful now. Measured. Emily called me back 20 minutes later with an explanation about how Rachel had been in the bathroom, not her, and she'd been confused, and the man I'd heard was just the bartender making last call, and her phone hadn't really died, just glitched. The lies piled up like bodies, and I started to suffocate under the weight of them. But I still didn't confront her. Not really. Because confronting her meant admitting that the foundation of my life might be built on sand. That wasn't the worst part either. In August, I noticed changes in her schedule. Emily had always been religious about her shifts at the hospital. 3 12-hour days a week, usually Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But suddenly she was picking up extra shifts. Wednesday evenings. Friday afternoons. They're short-staffed, she explained. I'm just trying to help out. Noble. Caring. Classic Emily. Except when I casually mentioned it to her supervisor at a hospital charity event, the woman looked confused. Extra shifts. Emily's actually been cutting back recently. Said she needed more family time. My blood ran cold right there in the middle of the fundraiser, holding a plastic cup of cheap wine, making small talk while my marriage disintegrated in real time. I smiled. Nodded. Made an excuse to leave. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 45 minutes, trying to breathe, trying to think. Where was Emily going when she said she was at work? Who was she with? The man's voice from the phone call echoed in my head. When I got home that night, Emily was in the kitchen making her famous lasagna. She hummed while she worked, flour dusting her nose, looking exactly like the woman I'd married. "Hey, honey. How was the event?" She kissed my cheek. I almost told her. Almost said, "I know you're lying about work." But fear stopped me. Fear of what the truth might be. Fear of losing everything. So instead, I said, it was fine, and helped her set the table while my heart shattered silently inside my chest. But that still wasn't the worst part. If you're as hooked on this story as I am, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. These stories don't tell themselves. September brought the incident that should have been my wake-up call. I was cleaning out the car, Emily's car, vacuuming between the seats. I found a receipt wedged under the passenger seat. A hotel receipt from the Riverside Inn, dated from that weekend in July. The same weekend Emily was supposed to be with Rachel. Room 237. 2 nights. I stared at that piece of paper until the words blurred. My wife had lied to me. Directly. Deliberately. She'd gone to a hotel instead of her sister's house. The question that burned through my brain was simple and terrible: who had been in that room with her? I confronted her that night. Held up the receipt with shaking hands. "What is this?" Emily's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Surprise. Fear. Then something hardened in her eyes. "I can explain." "Please do," I said, my voice cold. "Explain to me why you lied about where you were. Explain the man's voice on the phone. Explain the fake work shifts." She sat down slowly. "Rachel and I did have a fight that weekend. We checked into a hotel separately because we weren't speaking. I didn't tell you because I was embarrassed. The man you heard was the hotel manager. There was a billing issue. And I've been going to therapy on those extra work days. I didn't want to worry you." The lies were so smooth. So perfectly calibrated. Each one had just enough truth mixed in to be plausible. And because I wanted to believe her, because I needed to believe her, I let myself be convinced. We had a long talk that night. She cried. I cried. She promised no more secrets. I promised to trust her. We made love like we were trying to repair the cracks with our bodies. And for a few weeks, I thought maybe we'd turned a corner. I was such a fool. October came with shorter days and a creeping dread I couldn't shake. Emily seemed lighter, happier even, after our confrontation. She was more affectionate, more present. It should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like she was playing a role. I started paying attention to small things. The way she angled her phone away from me. How she'd started showering as soon as she got home from work. The new lingerie I'd never seen her wear. For me, at least. One night, I pretended to be asleep when she came to bed late. She'd said she was doing paperwork downstairs. I watched through barely open eyes as she plugged her phone in, then stood there looking at it with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Soft. Tender. The way she used to look at me. She typed something quickly, smiled at the response, then deleted the whole conversation. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. But she just climbed into bed next to me and fell asleep while I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering who was making my wife smile like that. But even that wasn't the worst part. In November, 3 weeks before Christmas, I made a decision. I hired a private investigator. His name was Tom Brennan, a retired cop with sad eyes and a firm handshake. I need to know, I told him. I need to know if my wife is having an affair. Saying the words out loud made them real in a way they hadn't been before. Tom nodded. I'll need 2 weeks. Maybe less. He didn't judge me. Didn't tell me I was paranoid or crazy. He just took the job and started following my wife. 5 days later, Tom called me at work. You need to meet me. Today. Bring a box of tissues. We met at a coffee shop across town. Tom slid a folder across the table. I'm sorry, he said simply. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Emily walking into the Riverside Inn with a man I'd never seen before. Tall. Dark hair. Athletic build. They were holding hands. In another photo, they were kissing in the parking lot. Another showed them through a restaurant window, leaning across the table toward each other, lost in conversation. The timestamp spanned 3 months. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a relationship. There's more, Tom said quietly. He showed me bank records he'd somehow obtained. A secret credit card in Emily's name. Charges for hotel rooms. Expensive dinners. Jewelry I'd never seen her wear. And then the kicker, an apartment rental agreement. Emily had rented a studio apartment downtown 6 months ago. A place I never knew existed. A place she'd been disappearing to. I thought the affair was the worst of it. The ultimate betrayal. My wife loving someone else, touching someone else, building a secret life with someone else. I went home that night ready to confront her. Ready to blow everything up. But when I walked through the door, Lucas and Sophie ran to hug me. Dad. Mom said we're decorating the Christmas tree tonight. Their faces were so happy. So innocent. I looked at Emily standing by the tree, stringing lights, and I couldn't do it. Not yet. Not until after Christmas. I'd give my kids one more perfect holiday before I destroyed their world. The cruelty of that decision would haunt me forever. Make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to take a turn no one sees coming. I played along for those 3 weeks leading up to Christmas. I smiled and decorated cookies. I wrapped presents and sang carols. I made love to my wife and pretended I didn't know she was thinking of him. Every moment felt like dying. But I did it for Lucas and Sophie, because they deserved one more Christmas where their parents weren't broken. Christmas Eve, Emily was unusually quiet. She kept watching me with an expression I couldn't read. After the kids went to bed, we sat by the tree, just the two of us. I have something to give you, she said. But it has to be just us. No kids. Red flag. Giant, screaming red flag. But I was numb by then. Okay, I said. Christmas morning, after the kids had opened their presents and were distracted with their new toys, Emily handed me that envelope. The one wrapped in cheerful paper. The one that would finally show me the truth wasn't even in the same universe as what I'd thought. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to give anyone, she said, tears already forming in her eyes. But you deserve to know. I opened it. Read the first DNA test. Then the second. The room tilted. My children. My son and daughter. Not mine. Not biologically mine. 12 years of bedtime stories and scraped knees and first days of school and I wasn't their father. Not in blood. The man in Tom's photos. Was he their father? Had Emily been with him all along? How long? I whispered. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. How long have you known? Emily's face crumpled. I've always known. From the beginning. Both of them. The betrayal wasn't just about infidelity. It was about every single day of the past 12 years being built on a lie. Every, "I love you." Every family photo. Every moment I'd felt proud to be Lucas and Sophie's dad. All of it contaminated by her deception. But that wasn't the most shocking truth. Not even close. Because when I picked up the letter behind the DNA tests, when I started reading the handwriting that wasn't Emily's, everything I thought I understood shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. The letter was from my brother James. My younger brother who I'd helped raise after our parents died when he was 16. My brother who I'd put through college. My brother who'd been my best man at my wedding. My brother who'd been traveling for work overseas for the past year. The letter was dated 6 months ago, right before he supposedly left the country. "David," it began. "If you're reading this, then Emily finally found the courage to tell you the truth. The truth I begged her to reveal years ago, but she was too afraid. The truth that's been eating me alive. Lucas and Sophie are my children. Biologically. But please, please keep reading before you hate us both. There's so much more you don't know." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. James. My own brother. The man in Tom's photos. It had been James all along. "It started before your wedding," the letter continued. "Emily and I had a brief relationship right after you two met. She broke it off to be with you. We didn't speak about it again. But 5 years into your marriage, I was going through a divorce. Emily was helping me through it. We were both vulnerable. We made a mistake. One night. That's all it took. When she found out she was pregnant with Lucas, she didn't know which of us was the father. She never told me until Lucas was 3 years old, until after Sophie was born. That's when she had them both tested. That's when she learned the truth. I couldn't breathe. My vision was tunneling. Emily was sobbing now, but I couldn't look at her. I kept reading. The affair you think happened didn't. Not the way you think. When Emily found out both kids were mine, I demanded to be in their lives. She refused. She loved you. She'd always loved you more than me. But I pushed. For years, I pushed. The apartment you probably found? That was for me. Emily helped me get it so I could be close to the kids, even if they didn't know who I was. The hotel visits? Emily would bring the kids there so I could see them, pretend to be their Uncle James without raising suspicion. Every lie, every secret, was about protecting you from this truth. The letter continued for 2 more pages. James explained how he'd fallen in love with Emily years ago, how watching her raise his children with me had destroyed him, how he'd begged her to leave me and build a real family with him. How Emily had refused again and again because she loved me, because she'd chosen me. How 6 months ago, he'd given her an ultimatum, tell me the truth or he would. How Emily had been trying to find the courage ever since. How he'd finally left the country because staying and watching our family was too painful. "I'm sorry," the letter ended. "I'm sorry I'm too much of a coward to tell you this to your face. I'm sorry I betrayed you in the worst way a brother can. I'm sorry I fell in love with your wife. I'm sorry your children are mine. But David, please believe this, Emily loves you. She's always loved you. She made a mistake, and I took advantage of it. Don't punish her for my sins. Don't punish Lucas and Sophie for decisions they had no part in. Be the bigger man I never could be. I'm staying away. For good. It's the only decent thing I can do. I love you, brother. Please forgive us someday. James." I looked up at Emily. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you 1,000 times. Every day for 12 years, I woke up wanting to tell you. But I was terrified. Terrified of losing you. Terrified of destroying the kids' lives. Terrified of what you'd think of me. Why now? I asked. My voice was hollow. Dead. Why tell me now? Because James told me if I didn't give you the truth by Christmas, he'd come back and tell you himself. Because I couldn't live with the secret anymore. Because you deserve to know. And because. She took a shaky breath. Because I need to know if there's any chance you can forgive me. If we can survive this. I don't expect you to. But I had to give you the choice. The man in the photos wasn't a stranger. He was my brother. The affair wasn't ongoing. It had been one terrible night years ago, with consequences that echoed through time. Emily hadn't been sneaking around to be with a lover. She'd been facilitating a relationship between my brother and the children he'd fathered. Children I'd raised. Children I loved with every atom of my being. But none of that changed the fundamental truth: my wife had lied to me for 12 years. My brother had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. And the children I'd raised, the children who called me dad, weren't mine. The worst part, I finally said, my voice breaking, isn't even that you lied. It's that you let me love them. You let me fall completely in love with Lucas and Sophie, knowing that one day you might rip them away from me. Knowing I had no legal right to them. Knowing the truth could destroy everything. How could you do that to me? How could you let me build my entire identity around being their father when you knew it was all temporary? When you knew this bomb was always out there waiting to explode? Emily reached for me, but I pulled away. I never thought of it as temporary, she said desperately. You are their father. DNA doesn't change that. You're the one who taught Lucas to ride a bike. You're the one who checks for monsters under Sophie's bed. You're the one they run to when they're hurt or scared. James is just biology. You're their dad. But I'm not, I said flatly. Not really. And now I have to live with that knowledge. Now I have to look at them and see his face instead of mine. Now I have to wonder if every little thing they do comes from him instead of me. You've contaminated every memory I have. Every moment of joy is now wrapped in your deception. The following hours blurred together. Emily told me everything. How she'd only slept with James once, the week before she found out she was pregnant with Lucas. How she'd prayed Lucas was mine. How devastated she'd been when the test proved otherwise. How she'd been so careful after Sophie was born, but James had demanded another test, had to know. How learning both children were his had nearly broken her. How she'd considered leaving me, telling me the truth, 1,000 different scenarios. How she'd ultimately chosen to protect our family, even if it meant living with the lie. I was selfish, she admitted. I chose the easier path. I chose to keep my family intact at your expense. I chose to let you love them fully while knowing I might have to confess someday. I own that. I own all of it. I asked her about the apartment, the hotels, the secret credit card. She explained it all. The apartment was for James to have a space near the kids. The hotels were meeting places where she'd bring Lucas and Sophie for playdates with their uncle. The credit card was to keep these arrangements separate from our joint finances. It wasn't an affair in the traditional sense, but it was still a betrayal. Still a secret life. Still a fundamental violation of trust. Did you ever love him? I asked. Did you ever wish you'd chosen him instead of me? Emily met my eyes. I loved him once, a long time ago. But I loved you more. I've always loved you more. That's why I stayed. That's why I kept choosing you, every single day, even when it meant lying to you. I know that doesn't make it okay. I know love isn't an excuse for what I did. But it's the truth. The problem was, I didn't know if I could believe any of her truths anymore. The days after Christmas were a fog. I moved into the guest bedroom. I couldn't look at Emily without feeling like I was drowning. But worse than that was facing Lucas and Sophie. They knew something was wrong. Kids always know. Sophie kept asking why Daddy was sad. Lucas, older and more perceptive, started avoiding me. Started spending more time in his room. I could see him pulling away, could see the confusion and fear in his eyes, and it killed me. Because no matter what biology said, he was still my son. She was still my daughter. I'd changed their diapers and walked them through nightmares. I'd taught them to swim and helped with homework and attended every recital and game. DNA couldn't erase 12 years of loving them. But it changed something. And I hated myself for letting it change anything at all. I called Tom, the private investigator, and asked him to find James. It took him 3 days. My brother was in Thailand, teaching English at a rural school. As far away from our lives as he could get. I called him. When he answered, I could hear the fear in his voice. David. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Did you love her? I asked. No greeting. No preamble. Yes, he said quietly. I did. I still do, in a way. But not more than I loved you. That's why I left. I couldn't keep destroying you. Did you ever think about what this would do to me? When you slept with my wife? When you demanded to see the kids? When you put Emily in this impossible position? Long silence. Then, every day. Every single day. I thought about it, and I did it anyway. I was selfish. I wanted her. I wanted to be a father to my children. I wanted what you had, and I tried to take it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you I know what I did. I know what I destroyed. You destroyed our family, I said. You destroyed our brotherhood. You destroyed everything. I know. His voice broke. I know, and I'm sorry, and I'll never stop being sorry. But David, please. Please don't let this destroy what you have with Lucas and Sophie. They're innocent. They love you. They need you. Don't let my mistakes take their father away from them. I hung up. I couldn't listen to him anymore. Couldn't process the idea that my brother, my blood, the person I'd trusted most in the world besides Emily, had done this to me. The days turned into weeks. January came cold and bitter. Emily and I barely spoke. The kids started acting out. Sophie's grades dropped. Lucas got into a fight at school. Our family was disintegrating in slow motion, and I didn't know how to stop it. Didn't know if I wanted to stop it. I went to therapy. Dr. Reeves was a patient woman in her 60s who'd seen everything. What do you want? She asked me in our 3rd session. Not what you should want. Not what's fair or right. What do you actually want? I want to turn back time, I said. I want to not know any of this. I want my wife to have never lied and my brother to have never betrayed me and my kids to be mine. But that's not possible, she said gently. So what do you want with the reality you have? I thought about it for a long time. I want my family back. But I don't know if I can trust Emily ever again. I don't know if I can look at her without seeing every lie. And I don't know if I can be the father Lucas and Sophie deserve when I'm this angry and broken. Those are honest answers, Dr. Reeves said. Now the question is, can you live with not trusting Emily but still loving her? Can you accept that Lucas and Sophie are yours in every way that matters, even if DNA says otherwise? Can you find a way to forgive, not because anyone deserves it, but because holding on to this rage will poison whatever future you try to build? I didn't have answers. Not then. But slowly, through therapy and time and 1,000 painful conversations with Emily, something shifted. I realized that my love for Lucas and Sophie hadn't actually changed. When Sophie came to me crying because a girl at school had been mean to her, I held her and comforted her the same way I always had. When Lucas asked me to help him with a science project, I said yes without hesitation. They were my kids. Not because of biology, but because of choice. Because love isn't about who shares your DNA. It's about who you show up for. Who you choose, every single day, to be present for. But Emily was harder. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. Could we rebuild it? Did I even want to try? She'd started individual therapy too. She'd cut off all contact with James permanently. She'd opened every account, shared every password, made herself completely transparent. She was doing everything right. But could I forgive her? Could I look at her and see my wife again instead of the person who'd lied to me for 12 years? February brought a turning point. Emily and I were sitting in our therapist's office for couples counseling. Dr. Martinez asked me point blank, "David, do you love your wife?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. And I realized it was true. Underneath all the anger and betrayal and pain, I still loved her. I hated her too, in that moment. But I loved her more. "Do you want to save your marriage?" "Yes," I said again. "But I don't know if I can." "Then let's figure out if you can," Dr. Martinez said. "Not if you should. Not if it's fair or right. But if you can." The work was brutal. Emily had to sit with my anger, my questions, my grief. She had to answer every question I had, no matter how painful. She had to accept that I might never fully trust her again. That there would always be a part of me that wondered what else she was hiding. She had to live with the consequences of her choices. And I had to do my own work. I had to accept that life isn't fair. That sometimes people you love make terrible choices. That forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did, but about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment. I had to choose, actively choose, to build something new from the rubble of what had been destroyed. In March, I moved back into our bedroom. We didn't have sex. We just lay beside each other in the dark, holding hands, both of us crying quietly. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't a magical moment of reconciliation. It was just two broken people deciding not to give up. By April, we'd started to find a rhythm again. Not the same as before. We'd never have that easy trust, that casual certainty. But something different. Something more honest, maybe. Emily knew I was watching. Knew I'd probably always be watching. And she accepted it. She understood she'd have to earn back trust slowly, painfully, maybe forever. The kids noticed the change. They started laughing again. Started relaxing. Lucas came to me one night and asked, "Are you and Mom going to get divorced?" I looked at his scared face, this boy I'd raised from infancy, and said, "I don't know, buddy. But I know I love you, and I love your sister, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep our family together." He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I love you, Dad," he whispered. And in that moment, biology didn't matter. He was mine. He'd always be mine. It's been 9 months now since that Christmas morning. Emily and I are still together. Still working on us. Still in therapy. The trust is building back slowly, brick by painful brick. Some days I look at her and feel nothing but love. Other days, the betrayal crashes over me like a wave and I have to walk away before I say something I'll regret. She understands. She gives me space when I need it. She fights for us when I'm too tired to fight anymore. James is still in Thailand. He sends the kids birthday cards with no return address. Emily doesn't respond. That chapter is closed. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my brother again. Some betrayals are too deep to bridge. Maybe someday. But not today. Not yet. The hardest part is watching Lucas and Sophie grow. Lucas is starting to look more and more like James. Same nose. Same walk. It used to kill me. Now I'm learning to see just Lucas. My son. The boy I've raised to be kind and thoughtful and brave. James gave him DNA, but I gave him everything else. That has to count for something. Sophie still crawls into bed with us sometimes when she has nightmares. Emily holds her from one side, I hold her from the other. And in those moments, we're still a family. Broken in places. Scarred. But still standing. Still choosing each other. Still choosing love over bitterness. I don't know what our future looks like. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive Emily for those 12 years of lies. I don't know if I'll ever reconcile with James. I don't know if the trust between me and Emily will ever be what it once was. But I know I love my wife. I know I love my children. And I know that family is what you build, not what you're born with. That Christmas gift destroyed my family. But maybe we're building something new from the ashes. Something more real. Something that acknowledges that people are flawed and messy and capable of terrible mistakes, but still worthy of love. Still capable of redemption. Emily told me something last week that's been rattling around in my head. We were sitting on the porch, watching the kids play in the yard. I know I can never undo what I did, she said quietly. I know I broke something irreplaceable. But I want you to know I'd make the same choice again, even knowing how it would end. Not the lying part. That was wrong. But choosing you. Staying with you. Building this family with you. I'd choose that every time. Because you're the love of my life, David. You always have been. I didn't respond. Just squeezed her hand. Because some things don't need words. Sometimes, in the wreckage of betrayal, you find small truths that matter more than all the lies. Like the fact that despite everything, I still want to hold her hand. I still want to grow old with her. I still want to be Lucas and Sophie's dad. We're not a perfect family. We never were, though I didn't know it at the time. But we're real. Flawed and scarred and learning how to love each other with eyes wide open. Maybe that's worth more than perfection ever was. The DNA test Emily gave me that Christmas destroyed everything I thought I knew. But it also forced me to confront what family really means. It's not about blood. It's about who shows up. Who stays. Who fights for you even when you're broken. Who chooses you, over and over again, even when it would be easier to walk away. I'm still choosing Emily. Still choosing Lucas and Sophie. Some days that choice is easy. Other days it's the hardest thing I've ever done. But I'm making it. One day at a time. One moment at a time. Building something new from the ruins of what was lost. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about perfect people or perfect choices. It's about broken people deciding not to give up on each other. It's about forgiveness, even when it feels impossible. It's about choosing family, whatever that looks like, and holding on with everything you have. That's what I learned from the gift that destroyed my family. Sometimes destruction is the only path to rebuilding something true. If this story touched you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.